So it's been a while since I last brought you guys a Deshaun Watson update, and well, this is a piece of information that isn't necessarily foreign to us, but it is something that is starting to pick up some steam. But like I say, I really like giving you guys a heads up when I'm bringing you news as opposed to bringing you a rumor. And since Deshaun Watson is like the next big NFL superstar that's likely to get traded, this isn't like definitive news from an Ian Rappaport or an Adam Schefter. This is a rumor I dug up from Jay Glazer and Chris Sims. So real quick, before we get to the content, just reminding you guys, I'm giving away an autographed jersey to anyone that follows me on my Instagram at TheFlightMike or on my Twitter account at Mikerophone NFL. If you want to see like an interesting short story series I'm doing on TikTok, we have a TikTok for that as well called at Mikerophone NFL. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Okay, so back in the day, if you had a wallet that looked like this and it was a fat wallet, it was considered to be like the biggest flex in the world. But it's not 1985 anymore, man, and if you have your wallet bulge just completely dominating your pant pocket, well, all you're doing is screaming to potential robbers to come pickpocket you, or signaling to gold diggers that, hey, come seduce me. And you don't want any gold diggers taking your bread, king. That's why I've partnered with the Ridge wallet. Now this is what a wallet looks like in 2021. It's small, it's compact, it's discreet, you won't get pickpocketed at music festivals or at the gym. There's over 30 different colors and styles. This is 18 karat plated gold, my guy. And now if you go to ridge.com/microphone, you'll get 10% off of one of these wallets. I mean, look at this. You need your credit card? Bam. You need your Chick-fil-A gift card? I got you, bro. So go to ridge.com/microphone to get 10% off of one of these wallets. And thank you, Ridge Wallet, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The last we've ever heard of any potential Deshaun Watson to Philadelphia Eagles rumor was when Deshaun Watson came out a month ago and said, hey, I am not waiving my no trade clause to go to Philadelphia. Apparently, the only teams at the time of that report that Deshaun Watson was cool with potentially waiving his no trade clause for were the Miami Dolphins and the Carolina Panthers, and apparently the Denver Broncos. But unfortunately for Deshaun Watson, not only have those two teams already found an alternative to their quarterback situation, but they're both undefeated at the time that I'm making this video. So other than the Miami Dolphins, who have Tua out currently with a rib injury, if the Miami Dolphins wanted to make a move for Deshaun Watson, it probably would have been last year when they had a plethora of first-round draft picks. And you could tell that the Dolphins were itching to make a move when they made multiple moves with the San Francisco 49ers. They still have a decent amount of draft capital. It's just they don't have as much as they did last year as a result of the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade and the Laramie Tunsil trade, and of course, their own draft pick. So as a result, after a month, I'm kind of curious to see why on earth something would change. Apparently, according to Jay Glazer, the Houston Texans have softened their asking price for their former starting quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and he said that the Miami Dolphins could potentially be a team to watch. This is pretty interesting because the Miami Dolphins, although they're one of the up-and-coming teams in the NFL, they haven't necessarily gotten out to the greatest start, and I think this week is probably going to be the ultimate test. Yeah, they were extremely competitive against the up-and-coming undefeated Las Vegas Raiders, but they got decimated by the Buffalo Bills in a game where, granted, they had to make a last-second adjustment and put Jacoby Brissett in for Tua Tagovailoa without any preparation at all whatsoever, so they're riding with a backup QB currently. I don't think this is enough for the Miami Dolphins to come out and say, hey, we are going to officially punt on Tua. I know we drafted him with a number 5 overall pick. I know the tank for Tua campaign was very much in full swing the year before we did draft him, but we're going to go ahead and punt on him. I don't really think this is something that the Dolphins would do so prematurely, especially when you consider the asking price for a player like Deshaun Watson. Now, what's interesting is typically this would be a report that I would completely ignore. It's a 4-day-old report, but get a look at this. According to Chris Sims and Mike Florio, which they said this on Pro Football Talk Live, which by the way, these are typically rumors. Sometimes they're true, sometimes not so true. So again, take it with a grain of salt. I like seeing the rumblings behind the scenes in the NFL. Sometimes we hit it on the head like we did with Richard Sherman, like we did with Le'Veon Bell, and sometimes we miss, kind of like Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers' situation was very strange. So take a look at this. I'm going Deshaun Watson. Do they get back into Deshaun Watson? When you consider Jay Glazer reported earlier on the weekend, the Texans have softened their stance in recent days on what they want for Deshaun Watson, and that the Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa on IR, I think they have to be considering making the move before the window closes on November 2nd. From the Eagles' standpoint, aware of the possibility that the Dolphins are going to go a deadline deal and cognizant of what Jalen Hurts is and isn't doing, maybe at some weird level, this is an organizational effort to kind of put the Hurts ceiling/floor analysis in an accelerator. So we know by the end of October what we have, instead of knowing by the end of December and into January what we have. Let's go ahead and let's see where he is. Let's throw stuff at him. Let's see how he responds so we can make an assessment by November 2nd. And if we decide to pull the trigger, boom, we go get Deshaun Watson. You have to at least be thinking about that, right? Sims says, sure, yeah, I'm with you. Florio says you don't know where his ceiling is, and Chris Sims agrees with him, but Florio continues and says that you're kind of seeing where the floor is, but you want to hit the pedal to the metal so you have the best information by late October so you can make a decision on whether to make a play for Deshaun Watson now or later, knowing that you don't, that the Dolphins may, and then it's done. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because I don't know how Chris Sims has this information, and I'm very skeptical of this information, but according to Chris Sims, yeah, I think it's a good thought by you. I think there's some reality to that for sure. I do. And you and I both know that Philadelphia is in that mix for the Deshaun Watson thing, and that's a real thing. From everything I know, the owner has given them the green light as far as Howie Roseman and company to make that deal if it's right. So yes, you have to worry a little, and here's just one other inkling. Another inkling told me that they're not sold on Jalen Hurts. Now, before I get to Mike Florio's finale here, which I agree with what Florio's about to say, it's very important to know that that's a pretty crazy assumption. I mean, if there was an opportunity to go and get Deshaun Watson, I think they would have went ahead and got Deshaun Watson by now. The Philadelphia Eagles are in the best position to make a move for Deshaun Watson because they have 2 first-round picks and they have their pick. They have a pick from the Miami Dolphins as a result of the Dolphins trading up with them this past year in the NFL draft. And then, of course, they have the Indianapolis Colts pick, which at the very worst would be a second-round pick, but it could become a first pick if Carson Wentz plays in a certain amount of games, which I think more likely than not he will. So the Eagles potentially have 3 first-round picks, and they could send back Jalen Hurts. I don't know if they're going to give up all their first-round picks, but here's the issue, and I think Mike Florio hits this part on the head, is the fact that the other thing to keep in mind is that no trade clause, because Watson wants Miami, and there have been some conflicting reports on whether or not he has said no to Philadelphia. I think that if Philadelphia is the only option, he'll say yes, but we'll see. Here's the thing. I know Philadelphia's been like an absolute poop fest recently. They're not as bad as Houston has been in terms of just gutting out their very promising roster. I mean, they kind of have a similar story because they dismantled a Super Bowl championship roster, but the issue I have with this one rumor is, yes, in terms of assets, the Philadelphia Eagles have everything they need to get him. But the problem is Deshaun Watson doesn't want to go there. I think Deshaun Watson's waiting to see whether or not the Dolphins will budge and say, hey, Tua is on the IR, which means he cannot play until another 2 weeks at the very minimum. And that's like the best case scenario. For all you know, that might not happen. It really depends on how many games the Dolphins lose. If they lose their next 2 games and then Tua's out for another 2 weeks and then Tua comes back and he's not really that good, well, at that point it's a little too late. If the Dolphins lose their next couple of games, would they really be that desperate to save their season to the point where they could potentially change the entire trajectory of the team by trading a player that they drafted a year ago and packaging him with a bunch of picks to go out and get Deshaun Watson? I don't know. I don't think they would budge on their situation here. If they said that Tua's the starter from the very beginning, I'd imagine they ride with Tua until the very end just to see what they have in Tua. But at the same time, you have to understand that in the NFL currently, it seems like head coaches and front office ownership are extremely impatient with players and their lack of progress. I mean, look no further than Josh Rosen. You could say that he's a terrible QB, or you could say he was in a horrible situation, but the one thing you have to agree on is the sample size of games he got in Arizona was very paltry. I mean, you're talking about a guy that literally started 13 games in his career. He threw 11 touchdowns to 14 interceptions for a 55% completion percentage, which, by the way, don't get me wrong, that's absolutely horrible. You have to also think that, hey, this was your first round pick. Shouldn't there be some semblance of trying to develop him? Shouldn't there be some semblance of giving him an opportunity? Well, at this point, Tua Tagovailoa has started in almost as many games as Josh Rosen has. He started in 11 games. His completion percentage throughout his career has been significantly better. He's so far given me hardcore game manager type of vibes, but again, it's still super early in his career. I feel like the Miami Dolphins would at least want to sit behind Tua to see what they have in him before giving up on a 23-year-old that you spent a number 5 overall pick to draft. But the problem is, if you wait too long and Tua ends up just being a glorified game manager, well, he's not going to be as valuable of a trade piece if you do want to trade him for Deshaun Watson. I personally think Deshaun doesn't go anywhere. He doesn't want to go to Philadelphia because they're rebuilding. They don't necessarily have the greatest offensive line, but at the same time, you have to look at this from Philadelphia's standpoint. I mean, you already did something very impulsive by spending a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts when you had Carson Wentz on your team, which granted, I know in hindsight it looks good because Carson Wentz was horrible last year, and we could go into a whole video on that in of itself. But at the same time, if you look at the amount of games Jalen Hurts has started, he's only started in 7 games throughout his entire career. And this year, he's been actually pretty decent. Like, yeah, he's not coming out and absolutely carving up teams, and he doesn't look like the next coming of Michael Vick immediately, but you got to give credit where it's due. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, completed 66% of his passes. I know the Eagles currently are 1-2, but that's enough for me to look at this guy and say, okay, you know, I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to ride it out with him. Maybe I have something here. He's also a dual threat quarterback. He's significantly cheaper than Deshaun Watson, and you don't have to give up as many assets to move on from him. I wasn't sold on him in the offseason because, again, he was just thrown into the fire in the middle of the season, and we didn't really get an opportunity to see what a fully prepared Jalen Hurts looks like. He only had a 52% completion percentage. He threw 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions in 4 games that he started. Don't get me wrong, his record is abysmal, but at the same time, it's enough for me to sit back and say, hey, I want to see what I have in Jalen Hurts before really going all in and giving up a plethora of assets for a bona fide superstar player. I don't know so much in Tua's case because in the sample size I saw Tua, I got very game managery type of vibes, but at the same time, they went out and invested heavily in their wide receiver core this year, which is enough to warrant at least a couple more games or at least a full season to see what you have in Tua before going all in and potentially trading for Deshaun Watson, especially if Deshaun Watson's situation hasn't been configured yet. Bear in mind that even if you do get Deshaun Watson, it's going to take some time for him to learn your offense. He isn't going to carry you to the playoffs magically this year, Miami. He's not going to carry you to the playoffs magically this year either if you're Philadelphia. You might as well wait and see what you have in Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, and then if you don't like what you have in him, go ahead and try to trade for him in the offseason once his situation is settled. Yeah, you might have to pay a steeper price, but at the same time, at least you won't be kicking yourself for giving up young QBs, young former Alabama QBs way too early. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this rumor. I'm 100% selling on this rumor. I just think they're making something out of nothing. I thought it was interesting to talk about because, you know, I like discussing Deshaun Watson here and there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.